A warm welcome to Disky Talk with Luyolo. If you're tuning in for the very first time, I do ask that you please subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you've been a part of this journey, I hope you thoroughly enjoy this episode. So, on today's episode, I discuss all things Bafana Bafana and Nedbank Cup quarterfinal draw. However, we will start with Bafana Bafana as the squad has been trimmed down for the team then that will do duty in the friendlies against France and Guinea as well. And then in the last segment of the episode, we're going to have a look then at the Nedbank Cup draw, which then was conducted earlier on this evening. And it is the quarterfinals. Let's then start with Bafana Bafana. So with Hugo Bruce then, he has trimmed down his squad, and this is the final squad then that will do duty in the friendly games. So when we have a look at the squad then, we'll start with the goalkeepers. So we've got Ronan Williams, we've got Veli Motwa, and then we've got Bruce Bavuma as well. So quite interesting then when you have a look at these three goalkeepers, especially considering then that I don't feel that any of them have really been playing at their best, especially then considering that Bruce hasn't been playing at all for Kaizer Chiefs in the past couple of months. And then you've got Veli Motwa, who's off form for AmaZulu and has been making quite a lot of mistakes and has had uncharacteristic performances as of late. And then you've got Ron Williams as well. And it's just unfortunate then that Brandon Peterson was reported to be injured, so he did not make the final cut. Would have been very interesting then to actually have Brandon Peterson, as I do think that he was starting to pick up form for Kaizer Chiefs, and he's a goalkeeper then that could have actually grown within the national team setup. However, I do think that going into the friendlies, Ronwen Williams will most likely then be the first choice, also considering then that he is also the captain of the national team. So Ronwen Williams will most likely start in goals. And when you have a look at Hugo Bruce then, he has favored a 4-3-3/4-2-3-1 formation. That's the formation that he's gone with most of the time. So when we move on then right along and have a look at the defenders, we've got Nico Mobi, Khuliso Mutau, we've got Terence Mashego, you've got Rasheen Duruk, you've got Sianda Kulu, you've got Atenkosi Mkaba, and then you've got Nkosinathi Sibisi. So when you have a look at those defenders then, quite surprised then to actually see Nico Mobi within the squad, especially considering then that he hasn't been performing well as of late, and he's a player then that hasn't been on form. And also when you consider then that Njabulo Blom has been left out, a player who I think has been one of Kaizer Chiefs' best players and one of Kaizer Chiefs' most consistent players throughout the season. And also considering then that Njabulo Blom has performed, whether he's played at right back or played within the heart of midfield. Just surprised then to see Hugo Mobi there, because I just feel that he hasn't played well. Even the last time out when he did play for Bafana Bafana, he didn't impress me. And even then for Sikukune, he hasn't been on form as of late. So I would have liked to see Njabulo Blom in the selection. And then when you have a look then at Sianda Kulu, that's also another player who I've actually been surprised by with regards to his call-up, because also when he then played the last time out for Bafana Bafana, I wasn't too impressed with his performances, and also considering then that he hasn't been playing regularly and he's also clubless at the moment. So it's quite then surprising with regards to the selection criteria when it comes then to the defenders that Hugo Bruce has picked. Defender that I would have liked to see then is a given Smangu, especially then given the fact that this is a player who has been doing well for TS Galaxy in the past couple of months, and he has had very good performances. So just surprising then to see certain names within the selection. However, that's the defense that Hugo Bruce has gone with. And when you then look at it from a consistency perspective with regards to the back four that he's tended to favor, I do then think that you will start with Nico Mobi at right back, Kulu as the right-sided centre-back, you have Rasheen Duruk as the left-sided centre-back, and then at left back, I do foresee him going with Mashego. However, he did also then call Lila K for the first time. So that could be an interesting proposition. However, if there's something I've noticed about Hugo Bruce is that he likes to keep a consistent back 4/back 5 with regards to his defense. And I think then that will be his back 4. And then when you have a look at the midfielders, you've got Lila K, you've got Bandile Shandu, and I think for Lila K and Bandile Shandu, they do play as fullbacks. However, because they are a lot more offensive and they play as wingbacks for their teams, I think that's why they've been included within the midfielders department. However, I think it's a well-deserved call-up for both players because they've been doing really well, and as of late, they've contributed with goals and assists for their teams as well. And then when you move on right along, you've got Ntobi Mvala, you got Tebogo Mokoena, you got Goodman Musele, you got Thabang Munare, you got Ethan Brooks, and then you've got Keegan Dolly. So a name then that sticks out there to begin with is a Goodman Musele, especially considering then that the last time out when Hugo Bruce did call Goodman Musele, we do know then that there was those issues where then he didn't report for camp and it was reported that he had gone AWOL. However, then it's also then good to see that Hugo Bruce doesn't hold any grudges and that if a player is doing very well, he's going to put any personal issues aside and look to call the player up and involve him in his squad. So I really like to see that because oftentimes you do get coaches who do tend to put emotional issues ahead of being objective and picking players then who are doing very well and that can contribute and bring value to the national team. So lovely to see then Goodman Musele being included because this is a player who's been doing very well for Orlando Pirates and a player then who's growing then within that role of a number 8 for Orlando Pirates. And then when you have a look at it then, another name that I'm very surprised by is Thabang Munare. So when you have a look at Thabang Munare, this is very interesting because when you then have a look and consider what Hugo Bruce said when he did come in, he did mention that he was trying to build a fresher and younger squad. However, the door was not closed to an older player. But when you have a look at Thabang Munare and you have a look at the fact that he is a defensive midfielder, and then also consider the fact that you've got Andile Jali, who's currently in the running for midfield of the season, and a player who's been doing very well this season and has also at times worn the armband for Mamelodi Sundowns, one then would think that Andile Jali should be getting the nod ahead of Thabang Munare. So this also then does put a question with regards to Hugo Bruce selection criteria, especially then when it comes to the midfield. Also another name then, Ethan Brooks. Very shocked then to see Ethan Brooks because in my opinion, Ethan Brooks hasn't been on form and he hasn't been doing really well in my opinion for TS Galaxy in the past couple of months. Also factor in that you've got players like Hashim Domingo who have been doing very well for Mamelodi Sundowns. You've got a player like Undlondlo who's also been doing very well for Marumo Gallants and he's also been scoring goals as well. And when you look at Undlondlo and you look at Hashim Domingo, I feel that they're a lot more ahead of an Ethan Brooks. I still feel like Ethan Brooks is still developing with regards then to his position and then understanding where are his best strengths. Is he an 8? Is he a 10? I still feel like he's developing in that regard. Whereas with Undlondlo and with Hashim Domingo, they're a lot more specialists in that regard. And they are players then who are playing really well. So very shocked then to see Ethan Brooks named there. And I just then feel that it's counterproductive to give players a call-up just because they're youngsters, you know. I feel that if they are giving and they are trying to integrate young players into the national team, it should be young players then who will add value. It should be young players then who are currently doing well within the league. Otherwise, you'll just have young players there for the sake of it, and when it's time to do battle, they don't add much value. And then when you move on then right along, you do have Lyle Foster, you've got Bonguhle Shongwane, you've got Evidence Mahopa, you've got Fakhri Leke, and you've got Percy Tau as well. And then when you have a look at this department then, quite happy to see Fakhri Leke there. However, another player then who I haven't been impressed with is Evidence Mahopa. I just feel that he's been off form and he hasn't had a great season for Baroka. However, he gets the nod. And when I look at this squad selection overall, a couple of things stick out for me when it comes to Bafana Bafana and when it comes then to Hugo Bruce. So when I look at Bafana Bafana then, it does then paint a picture where we lack quality because some of these players that have been called up are players then who haven't been doing well for their respective clubs. A, B, it also then makes me question Hugo Bruce's selection criteria, because then there are departments where there are players who are doing very well for their clubs within the DStv Premiership and also doing very well within the CAF Champions League. However, they've not had the look in. Instead, they've called players then who have been playing for the national team in recent months but haven't really added value. And I just then think then it does then contradict him with regards then to his selection criteria, because in the beginning, the biggest point was he's trying to build a young, fresh squad. But when you have then a look at some of the players that he's picked, they're not so young, So at times, I do see that Hugo Bruce, there is a bit of contradictions with regards then to the players that he's picked. And it does then make me question his selection criteria and his squad then that he is taking to these upcoming friendly games. And I just then think that whenever a coach then is tasked to build a national team, I just think then that the most important aspect, when it comes to selection criteria is ensuring that he's able to underline his philosophy, his style of play, how then he's trying to structure the national team and on what fundamental values he's trying to build that national team. And then prerequisites such as form, age, and reputation should come in, because then that does give him immunity, because now we're starting to see inconsistencies with regards to his selection criteria and then with his statements. So I just think then if the coach then bases the selection criteria mainly on the foundation of his playing style, his philosophy, and his structure, then it makes it a lot easier and a lot better, because then when you have a look at certain departments, you could say that, okay, I'm going to go for player X. Player X might not be getting regular minutes at his club, but within the country, he is a specialist. So then he would fit the game model of the coach. And then when you have a look at other departments, because then you also have a look at South Africa, our players aren't the most consistent players. Our players also perform in patches. So when you then put out that statement to say that the most important aspect is that they should fit part and parcel of the style of play, the methodology, and the structure that we're trying to build, it then gives you that immunity and that opportunity then to pick then players who start picking up form. And even then the older players, because in South Africa, certain players do tend to mature a lot later. And also when you have a look at the national team, there is no time to build, and you don't have much time with the national team. So it should be very clear with regards then to the philosophy, the style of play, and the structure. And at times for me, with this Bafana Bafana side, under Hugo Bruce, it hasn't been clear as to what's the style of play, what are the principles, and what is he trying to achieve with regards to his game model and how he approaches games. However, when you do have a look at the midfield, I do think then his midfield three will most likely be Mtobi Mvala, Mukwena, and Goodman Musele, because what I have noticed from Hugo Bruce is that within the midfield, he doesn't go with a creative player. He doesn't really go with the playmaker and out-and-out number 10, but he does then like quite a robust, solid midfield three with two hard-working number 8s and a solid 6 who will just make sure that he's able then to protect his back four. And then I do think the front three will be Keegan Dolly off the right, and then you could have Fakhri Lakay up front, and then you could have Hlongwane off the left-hand side. Another thing then of Hugo Bruce is that he does then like to have inverted wingers. So the creativity does tend to come from the wide areas. That would be a Keegan Dolly then, as we do know that he would occupy that half space. At times then he would stick wide as well. However, this is the 11 that I foresee, but next week I will go into depth with regards then to the tactical perspective in relation to the squads then which are picked by France and Guinea for the upcoming friendly. So that is Bafana Bafana. Do let me know at home, what do you make of this selection? Are you happy? Do you think we're on track? Or do you feel like there's an issue then with regards to the selection criteria and how Hugo Bruce is going about things? So moving on then right along, let's have a look at the Nedbank Cup. So the Nedbank Cup is in the last 8 stage. So the quarterfinals are underway. So we do then have Mamelodi Sundowns taking on Summerfield Dynamos, which then I think should be an easy victory for Mamelodi Sundowns. Should be a comfortable victory. I do see them marching to the semi-finals. And then you've got Marumo Gallants versus Baroka. I do see Marumo Gallants winning that one, as they are one of the most informed teams within the country within the past couple of months, as they've picked up a lot of wins. And then you do have Chakuma versus Supersport United. I do foresee Supersport United being able to beat Chakuma. However, I do foresee it being a very, very difficult encounter as Chakuma have been playing really, really good football. So it's going to be a test for Supersport United. However, I just think on the day, the quality they have and the experience they have should see them over the line. And then you've got Royal AM versus University of Pretoria. In that game, I do see Royal AM making it. So the 4 teams then that I do foresee in the semi-final of the Nedbank Cup are Mamelodi Sundowns, Marumo Gallants, Supersport United, and Royal AM. So, ladies and gentlemen, do let me know, what do you make then of this episode where we had a look at Bafana Bafana with regards to Hugo Bruce and his selection and the Nedbank Cup quarterfinal fixtures. So, this episode was proudly brought to you by Manscaped. So, if you do then use the code DISCITALK, you can stand a chance then to get 20% off all products and free shipment as well. Thank you very much for tuning in, chat. Another special episode of Disky Talk with Luyolo. Signing out.